Hey, good afternoon. How you doing? It's June 2nd, I believe it is. June 2nd. Yes, it is. 2023. This is starting month 6 of 2023. Remember when we just got started in 2023? Man, time be flying, right? They say the older you get, time seems to go faster because your brain's not as quick. So time's going real fast with me. But how's everybody doing? Please, hey, like this, share it, and subscribe, and get your friends to join in. So today's going to be a little different. I was thinking about this the other day, and man, it's been over a year. I never really spent any time introducing myself and kind of telling my story. Who is this guy anyway? Who's talking to us, with us, at us, that kind of thing. So I want to spend some time in this show, maybe the next one, just kind of talking a little bit about my story and how I ended up here. And yeah, and I think there's some, and then I'm going to share some concepts as well that I think will be helpful, kind of weaved in there. But so let's go ahead. I'm just going to click through. I'm going to click through a lot of this stuff. But I will tell you this: what you see is from where you sit. Your perspective makes all the difference. So the way I see things are because of the life that I've lived, and the people who have influenced me, the things I've read, the things I've experienced. They've caused me to be the person that I am. I'm excited about that person. I like that person. I'm learning to love that person, and in the next 20, 25 years, 30 years, man, we about to have a blast. Because I'm going to take everything I've learned up till now, and I'm applying it, which is the big thing. You hear people say time is money. No, no, time is way more important than money. How do I know? Let me run this story by you. I heard this story today. So let's say that right now, I had $1 million to give you, $1 million, cash, money, crypto, however you want it, $1 million to give it to you right now, today. How many of y'all would take that $1 million if I had it to give to you right now, today? One thing, I give it to you today, but you got to die today. How many of y'all taking that deal? Now here's the next deal. You've already got $1 million, right? And you find out from the doctor. You go to the doctor and you get that diagnosis. What diagnosis? Yeah, that diagnosis. It's over for you. It's terminal. There's nothing we can do. Um, Nothing we can do. But let me tell you this one thing. It's a long shot. But this has worked every time for every person that's ever had your illness. But here's the catch: your insurance won't cover it. And you know how much it cost? $1 million. But you'd be totally healed, totally live a normal life. Would you give up your $1 million for that time? How many people would give up that $1 million? Right? So what's more important, time or money? Time. Time is way more important than money. But here's the thing, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later. When we hear time is money, and if we believe that, what happens is we're content to waste a lot of time. How many of you um, do things that you could pay somebody else to do, but you don't do so you can save a lot of money? Cut your grass, clean your house, do shopping for you, wash your car, basic stuff that if you paid people for it, you get your time back and you can do something else with your time. Or do you say, no, I don't want to waste my money on that. I'm gonna do this, and you spend your time doing it. And the other thing we do is we invest a lot of time in jobs that aren't going to pay us what we're worth. So we trade our time, called our life, for a little bit of money. I want you to think about that. Okay. So your perspective, what you see is from where you sit. Perspective makes all the difference. And we're going to talk a little bit later about how perception is really important. And you don't see with your eyes, you see with your mind. And if your mind can't perceive the opportunity, your eyes won't see the possibilities. If your mind can't perceive the opportunity, then your eyes won't perceive the possibility. Okay, so we got to really watch what we're listening to. Oh, then mess this all up. But anyway, this is supposed to be up a little bit. So this is my background. Okay, I grew up in a little town called Warren, Ohio. Warren, Ohio is in northeastern Ohio. I was born in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. That's where I was born at the U.S. Naval Hospital. Yep, in August of 1958. So I'll be 65 this August. And so my mom and dad were in Philadelphia. My dad was a Marine, so he's at the Naval Hospital is where I was born. But we moved from Philadelphia right after that to Warren, Ohio. Okay, and my dad, when he got out the Marines, he worked for the post office. Okay, now my dad and mom got married. They weren't messing around. They had 2 kids in less than 2.5 years. Less than they, man, they was making some babies. So there was me. Hey, Angelique from Seattle. So there was me, Gus, and there was my little brother Daryl. He was like 18 months apart. And if my dad had lived, he would have. I'm sure they would have had a bunch more kids. But my dad died at a very young age. Why? My friend and I were just talking about, black men and mental health and things like that. And this is 1960, okay? He's a black man in 1960, high school education. His wife has a high school education. They got 2 little kids. And he's got a job at the post office. And so back in the day, you could have a post office about anywhere, especially in a smaller town, right? Post office could be inside a store. It could be inside a gas station. It could be a little bit anywhere. So when my dad was in his teens, he shoplifted some stuff out of a store that was a post office. And so if you steal something out of a federal building like that, it's a little bit beyond a misdemeanor. And so he took some stuff that wasn't worth $1 or $2, and it hit his record. And because they could, they fired him. Now here he is, a veteran. He was in the Army and the Marines, not at the same time, but concurrently. He did that and fought for his country, and they took his job. Hey, Daytonia, they took his job. And needless to say, with the 2 little kids, and you can imagine what the prospects were like for a brother in Ohio in 1960, man, it wasn't a lot. That was a good government job. So from what I understand, he basically died of depression and a broken heart. And my mother loved that man, something crazy. And she would talk about Luther all the time. My mother passed away about a little over 11 years ago. But, and so another tragedy was talking about finances, right? Guess how much life insurance my dad had with 2 little ones? One about almost 20 some months and one like 6 months old. Guess how much insurance he had? 0. So here's my mom. Now she's a single mom with 2 little kids under 2 years old, and no real safety net. She's got to bury her husband, and she's got to carry on and take care of these 2 kids. So I know one of the impressions for me about a lot of things hit me back then. So we went to live with my grandmother, my grandfather, and my Uncle Walt. And Uncle Walt was there because Uncle Walt, something happened to him in college. We never were told. He went to college in Wichita, at Wichita State on the track scholarships. My uncle was so fast, This is, he had records when he was in high school that was still records like 30 years later. Nobody had beat him. That's how fast he was. Right. So he went to Wichita State. Something happened. He came back home. He's never been right since then. Okay. So I'm there with my dad's passed away because of, heart attack. So supposedly, got my uncle here with me, and I live in this household. So it's my mom, my brother, and I, grandma, grandpap, and Uncle. And so my mother, and like any town, we had our good elements and our bad elements. And we grew up, we didn't know it, but we were poor. We didn't really know it because everybody around us was about the same thing. So we were lower middle class. My mom was getting Social Security and getting some Social Security for us because our dad was in the military and stuff. But then we lived with our grandma and grandpa. But we didn't know we was poor. You really didn't, because everybody around us about the same. But when we knew we were poor is when we went to school, right? Because we lived on the east side, and all the white kids lived over on the north side and the northeast side. And yeah, there was a set of tracks. So yeah, we was on the wrong side of the tracks. But they let us know, and it was kind of like when we would go over to where our school was, it was kind of on the other side of those tracks. And so that's how we began to know that, yeah, there's always some tracks, man. So we, but my mother, she's a wise woman. We were always in church, so I became a Christian at 18. We were always in church, man. And before I was a Christian, I mean, we would be in church, we'd be in Sunday school, we'd be doing what we needed to do. We was reading that Bible. And my mother was on education. She was like, dude, you get an education. Yeah, I know you play sports. I played basketball, baseball, and football all the way through high school. I started, made all state in baseball and football, and was a very good baseball and football player. Basketball is okay. I just didn't give myself to that a whole lot, you know. But I was a good athlete, really good athlete. So my mom said, look, you can get hurt at any moment. You getting your grades. You understand, man? People knew when I was coming up, the street lights would come on. I'd be out playing basketball or playing baseball, doing something, playing football. They would stop the game and say, Gus, the street lights on. You better go home before you get a whooping. My mother had a reputation, man. She was gonna whoop my behind if I wasn't home by 6 o'clock when that light came on. And everybody knew, Gus, you got to go home. So people would look out for me. Even the little bad boys and girls would look out for me. Gus, you better go home. You shouldn't be over here. We about to do something. You need to go home. They was looking out for me, man. It was like God's protection, right? So when it came time for me to get out of high school, I was recruited by all the big football schools. I'm from Ohio, so Ohio State, Michigan State, all those schools came to recruit me to give me a scholarship. But I also got recruited by people like Brown University, Ivy League school, General Motors Institute, which was an engineering school, and schools like that. Because I had National Honor Society, plus I was a real good football player. So I ended up going to the University of Cincinnati. Why? Because I really liked the coach there. And they had a co-op program where if you went into engineering, you were basically guaranteed that you'd get a job with Dow Chemical or Procter & Gamble when you came out. So I'm like, bet. I can go to school for free. I can get in this co-op program and be assured of a job. Sign me up. So I didn't go to Ohio State or Michigan or other places. Why? Because I'm getting my education. So make a long story short, I did. I went to University of Cincinnati. I started as a freshman. Now, you know who else went to University of Cincinnati? And I met as a freshman, Reggie Ware. And you know Reggie Ware? He's the guy who owns blackdoctor.org. So Reggie played defensive back. We used to call him defensive blacks. So he played defensive back, which I was supposed to be a defensive back too. but they switched me to running back as soon as I got down to school. So Reggie was on defense and I was on offense, but he was from Ohio too. He was from Cincinnati, and I was from Warren, Ohio. So man, all us freshmen were sticking together, man, because we didn't know what was going on down there. So I played football down there, and as a freshman, I started. So I was first string at running back, and as a freshman in college, which is a big deal. You know, our first game we played in Tulane, down in the Superdome. You know, in the Superdome. So me and my homeboy from high school was the tailback. We both rushed over for over 100 yards. I scored my first touchdown as a freshman, and we beat Tulane down there. I said, "Whoa, man!" Like storybook land. You know, I was loving it. I was doing good in school, trying to make my way around socially in college, which was a whole nother strange thing for me because I was pretty naive, let's just say, going away to college. Boy, when my eyes opened up when I went to college. But hey, man, so college was going well, but there's also a lot of pressure, social pressure, football pressure, school pressure. And guess what? About week number 6 or 7, we were playing Georgia, down in Georgia, in Athens. They called it Between the Hedges. And I was playing running back. And we had put this new offense in just for Georgia. And they called this play, and I could see it. I'm in the end zone, man. It's over. So I jet out my stance, and the quarterback misses the handoff, puts it on my hip, and we fumble. And Georgia gets it, and they score the other way. And I felt like it was my fault, like I had lost the game for our team and stuff like that. And I went into a depression that I never really came out of. And they tell me that I called the hospital and said, "Hey, could you guys come check me in?" And they did. And so I found myself in week 7 of my freshman year, literally strapped to a gurney in a mental hospital to get help. Make a long story short, diagnosed manic depressive, which today is called bipolar. Whoa, wait a minute. You went from starting on the team to this and now, yep. And it looked like my career would be over, man. They were in the newspaper and stuff, all stuff about you and stuff like that. And I ended up going home back to Warren, and then I was in the hospital there, and people were freaking out back there at home. So stop for a minute. Boom. So mental illness issue, right? My uncle, my dad, then something happened with me. I had a couple other uncles who had some things going on. So that was something that was happening in my family. Money wasn't a lot of it. My mother worked hard. She worked a couple jobs. Black woman in the early 60s. Man, she worked hard. Wise woman. She scrambled, did everything she could do to make sure we had everything. We didn't go without food, without clothing. We didn't have the best of everything, but we were good. We were good. Something happened in my 9th grade year, though. My grandfather, they won a lawsuit from the coal mine, from something called black lung, from breathing in all that coal dust and stuff like that. A lot of them got cancer and got illnesses and stuff like that. So he won a lawsuit. I don't know how much money it was, but let me tell you this. We moved from the east side. We were to that deluxe apartment in the sky, like I said on Good Times. We moved out the city, right? And my mother had remarried to this guy. We didn't like this guy. They might see this, right? But I'm going to tell the truth, okay? We didn't want my mother to remarry anybody. And we showed them when we married this guy. You know why? We used to play football over my cousin's house in the street. And this guy used to park his car on the street. And we saw him come and go. He was from like Venezuela or somewhere. Handsome guy, always dressed to the nines. He had this brown 98. And the 98 had a soda machine in the car that also dispensed liquor. Now this is back in the day, right? So, and this guy was cool, and we would see him with different ladies all the time. And then he showed up at my house one day. I'm like, oh heck no. No, you ain't married my mom. We seen you. We seen your game, bro. The 98. That was the car, man. That was the ride. That was the ride. That 98, man. Shoot. And it was a big one too, boy. Big Bodosaurus 98, man. And dude shows up at the crib. My mother's talking to me and my brother about marrying that dude. We like, nah, ma, we ain't with this. We told her everything we knew and made up some stuff. You know, it's like, no, you can't marry. She marries this guy. Well, when my grandfather got the settlement, this guy had land, because one thing he was a dreamer. So he had some land. It was a nice piece of land. It was 90 yards long and 90 yards wide. That's a big yard. 90 yards, that's like a football field one way and a football field the other way. It was out in the country. So my mother didn't get the settlement. My grandfather got the settlement. My mother was taking care of the grandfather. So as a family, we got a settlement. So we built a house from the ground up out there on that land. To say this was a nice house is an understatement. This was a nice house. You understand what I'm saying? So 1, 2, 3 bedrooms upstairs, one down, 2 baths up, one down, full basement, like a split level thing. And they laid it out furniture wise, best appliances, best everything, deck on the back with the furniture and all. It was like, we done came up. You understand what I'm saying? So I knew what it was like to be like P-O, but you couldn't even afford the O-R. It was just Poe. And then until we were like middle class, upper middle class, right? And things were going well. Like I said, I went to college, So when I came back home and I was in the hospital, we were living in that house. And so my family, praying people, church-going people, love God, they got together. Quite frankly, my aunt who pastored the church in the place called Youngstown, they got together and they prayed. And they just basically said, nope, God, we can't have Gus go out like that. You got to heal him. One day, like they say about in the Bible, he was clothed and in his right mind. Bam, that's what happened to me. I was like, boom. And I start going through the sessions with the doctors and stuff. And they noticed I was getting better and blah, 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 whatever that meant. And you know what? I got out. So I went in like November. So like that next June, May or June, I got out. But guess what had happened? I had gained like 40 pounds, like from when I was playing. And we were going into the next year. And we were on quarters. I had missed 2 quarters. And so my scholarship was in jeopardy. Here's something y'all need to know. Newsflash. When somebody gets a scholarship, it's not a 4-year scholarship. It's 4 1-year scholarships that can be terminated for any reason. Yes, 4 1-year scholarships that can be terminated for any reason. It's like being an at-will employee. I don't like you today. You out of here. That's about how it is. Okay. So I had picked a good coach, really cared about me. And he said, Gus, you get back on your feet, your spot is secure on the team. So in the matter of about, it must have been 8 weeks or so, I went from not being able to walk around the block to where I would walk around the block, then I'd walk fast around the block, then I'd jog around the block, and then I would run around the block. Now, we're in the country. That block was half a mile to a mile long, the whole 4 round. You know what I'm saying? So I got in the best shape of my entire life. And I went back to school my sophomore year, and I got my scholarship back, and I won my starting position back by the grace of God. You know? And so we went through that. Then I transferred to Arizona. Reggie and those guys had already left. We got a new coach because our freshman year, we went 9-2. We had a great team. And we went to the Fiesta Bowl. That team and that coach, a lot of them left, right? And then when I got back, Reggie and those guys was gone, man. They had gone to Arizona. And I'm like, man, I got to get out of here. This new coach we got is crazy. So after my sophomore year, I went out to Arizona and reunited with my friends and started back in school out in Arizona, which is where I graduated from. You know what? They switched my position again. I was playing running back, right? They switched me to linebacker. What? Yep. So I started at linebacker. Make a long story short, third game of the year, I broke my leg, 2 places, tibia and fibula. My leg was like this on the ground, just like that. Boop. That was the end of my football career. So you see on here, I did graduate from the University of Arizona. I got my undergraduate degree from there in marketing. Okay. And what I started to do, because I knew my pro career was gone, I said, man, you got to get serious about school. So I started taking graduate level classes as a junior and as a senior. I took everything they had, man. And in the process, what happened was that the University of Arizona was bringing people who were actual practitioners of marketing science and marketing skills to the school. So they had a guy named Nick Mamana. He was a great sales manager. They brought him in to teach sales. There was a guy named Richard Lessler. They brought him in to teach advertising. He was the number two guy at the largest advertising agency in the world at that time. And he was teaching in our class. And so I came to class with my crutches and my big leg cast on, and he cracked a joke on me, and I cracked the joke back on him. And right then, there was some chemistry, and we became friends. Little Jewish guy, great guy, smart as a whip. And our class was a pass-fail class. Either got an A or an F. And your whole job was to take what you learned in that class and to pitch him on an advertising campaign. And you either got the campaign or you didn't. Because he said that's how the real world is. You either get the business or you don't. Ain't no second place. And so needless to say, man, we worked hard on that deal. And our team, we pitched and we won. And we got the campaign. So we got an A in that class. And more importantly, I built a lifelong friendship with Mr. Lessler. And he had a friend that came down to his ranch in Arizona for the holiday from Chicago. He came down to his ranch. Did you hear what I said? It was a ranch with a river running through it. He had horses on the ranch, tennis courts on the ranch. He had help, people who ran his house for him and stuff like that. I'm like, what the? I told you about my background, right? Now I come down to this place. He invites me down for the weekend because his friend Jack is down from Chicago. So I meet Jack and his family, and I'm kicking it with the kids. We're having a great time and just getting to know Jack and his family and yada, yada, yada. Man. And so we have dinner on Sunday. Jack sits next to me, and Jack starts going in on trying to find out about me and asking me questions about what I'm going to do and getting to know me and stuff like that. And I'm like, it wasn't uncomfortable, but almost. I mean, I was like, whoa, what's up with that? Then I found out who Jack was. Are you ready? Are you ready? Jack was the president of the Quaker Oats Company, the foods division, the largest division of the Quaker Oats Company. And he was basically interviewing me for a marketing position at Quaker Oats, which if you look on here in June of 1981, I went to work at Quaker Oats. Now, talk about God. Now, look, Quaker Oats in marketing, we're going to wind up, we'll pick the story up when we get back together, and we're going to get to some of these financial principles and weave it in here, okay? Quaker Oats only recruited from Ivy League schools, the University of Chicago, and Northwestern. I went to the University of Arizona, not exactly Harvard of the West. But networking is important. And learning how to work with people and having good people skills is important. Well, guess what? Jack Young opened the door and I got hired at Quaker Oats, which led to me working there for 14, 15 years, working at some other major corporations, getting my MBA at the University of Chicago that Quaker Oats paid for, and a lot of great experience and people that I met along the way. So Moral of the story, man, let me tell you. One, parents, you don't know. My mother changed my life by the way she managed us and kept us on the straight and narrow about studying, about staying away from bad kids, and not getting in trouble, getting my grades, which led me getting to a scholarship, which led me, because I was a good kid, kept my scholarship. Then he was willing to transfer me to out to Arizona. And then I met Dick Lessler, who ended up getting me to Chicago to Quaker Oats. Now check this out. In 1981, I started at Quaker Oats. I was making like 25 grand a year in 1981. By 1983, I was making 50 grand a year in 1983. Do you hear me? The median individual income in America right now is $36,000. And I was making 50 grand in 1983. That was 40 years ago. Now, let me ask you this. Are wages keeping up with inflation? You tell me. Come on now. We'll finish it up next time we get together, but some things to think about. Okay? If you see two turtles on a fence post, here's what you know. They didn't get there by themselves. I'm one of those turtles on the fence post. I didn't get here by myself. I have no delusions of grandeur about who I am and how I got here. People have looked out for this little black boy from Warren, Ohio. And I'm more than grateful to God for that. So, hey, we're going to finish this up next week. Y'all get to know me a little bit and see where I'm coming from and why it's so important to me that we get this stuff around financial literacy. Okay? God bless you guys. Until next week, we'll talk to you. Peace.